नमस्कार प्रसाद मराठीवर तुमच्या सगळ्यांचं स्वागत आहे. खूप दिवसानंतर आज मी इकडे आलो आहे आणि अधूनमधून येण्याचा प्रयत्न करेल. सोबतच आम्ही एक अँकरसुद्धा शोधतो आहे या चॅनलसाठी. तर तुमच्यापैकी कोणी इंटरेस्टेड असेल तर या दिलेल्या नंबरवर जरूर तुम्ही व्हॉट्सअपवर तुमचा रिझ्युमे टाकून द्या. तर चला येतो मेन मुद्द्यावर. रिसेंटली काय झालं की व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्च नावाची एक ॲक्टिव्हिस्ट रिसर्च कंपनी आहे. तिने एक रिपोर्ट बनवला वेदांता ग्रुपवर. असाच रिपोर्ट मागे हिंडनबर्गने बनवला होता अदानी ग्रुपवर आणि तेव्हा अदानी ग्रुपचे शेअर्स पडले होते. आता वेदांताचे शेअर्स पडले आहेत. प्रकरण काय एक शॉर्टमध्ये समजून घेऊया. या प्रकरणाच्या डिटेलमध्ये जाण्यासाठी आम्ही जे व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चचे फाउंडर्स आहेत त्यांच्याशी डिस्कशन केलं. ते आम्ही आमच्या हिंदी चॅनल्सवर टाकलेलं आहे. तर त्याचाही जो एक व्हिडिओ आहे त्याची लिंक आहे ते मी खाली देतो. तुम्हाला बघायचं असेल तर त्या व्हिडिओच्या एंडला तुम्हाला एक डिस्कशन मिळेल आमचं, जिथे आम्ही त्यांच्या फाउंडरसोबत डिटेलमध्ये गोष्टी जाणून घेण्याचा प्रयत्न केला. तर प्रकरण काय थोडक्यात सांगायचं झालं तर ही जी वेदांता लिमिटेड नावाची कंपनी इंडियाची भारतातली, हिची एक पॅरेंट कंपनी आहे UK जिचं नाव आहे वेदांता रिसोर्सेस. आता वेदांता रिसोर्सेसचं खूप मोठं कर्ज होतं 86,000 कोटींचं. आता हे कर्ज रिपे करायचं कसं हा एक मोठा प्रॉब्लेम होता आणि हा प्रॉब्लेम सॉल्व्ह करण्यासाठी मग त्यांनी काय केलं की आता बघा पॅरेंट कंपनी कुठे आहे तुमची UK. RBI काय म्हणतं की भारतातली कंपनी तिच्या पॅरेंट कंपनीला डायरेक्टली पैसे पाठवू शकत नाही विदाऊट RBI's परमिशन. मग जर तुम्ही डायरेक्टली वेदांता लिमिटेड पैसे पाठवू शकत नाही वेदांता रिसोर्सेसला तर मग पैसा पाठवणार कसा. तर मग यांनी डोकं लावलं की आपण डिव्हिडंडद्वारे लिगली पाठवू शकतो. की कंपनीमध्ये वेदांता लिमिटेडचे 56% शेअर होल्डिंग कोणाकडे वेदांता रिसोर्सेसकडे. तर 100 रुपयाचा आपण डिव्हिडंड दिला तर 56 रुपये कोणाकडे जातील वेदांता रिसोर्सेसकडे. अशा प्रकारे यांनी मोठमोठे डिव्हिडंड द्यायला सुरुवात केली. हे डिव्हिडंड शेअरहोल्डर्स छोट्या मोठ्या शेअरहोल्डरसाठी नव्हते, हे पॅरेंट कंपनीकडे पैसा जावा यासाठी होते. आता यामध्ये जे वेदांता लिमिटेड आहे त्यामध्ये भरपूर म्हणजे एक चांगला स्टेक पब्लिककडे पण आहे. म्हणजे नॉर्मल माझ्यासारखे जे शेअरहोल्डर्स आहेत रिटेल शेअरहोल्डर्स त्यांच्याकडे पण आहे. मग त्यांनाही या डिव्हिडंडमधून फायदा मिळाला. पण या डिव्हिडंडच्या मागची जी स्टोरी आहे ती वेगळी आहे. की व्हिडिओमध्ये पुढे जाण्याआधी एक क्विकली तुम्हाला सांगू इच्छितो की सध्या आमचा व्हॅल्यू इन्व्हेस्टिंग कोहोर्ट सुरू होतो आहे, ज्यामध्ये जर तुम्हाला व्हॅल्यू इन्व्हेस्टिंग डिटेलमध्ये शिकायची आहे, इंट्रिन्सिक व्हॅल्यू कशी काढायची, अंडर व्हॅल्यूड स्टॉक्स कसे शोधायचे, ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टी तुम्हाला आमच्या व्हॅल्यू इन्व्हेस्टिंग कोहोर्टमध्ये डिटेलमध्ये समजायला मिळतील. आणि इंडियामध्ये हा पहिला आमचा कोहोर्ट आहे, भारतातला सगळ्यात मोठा, जो 15 तारखेपासून सुरू होता. या कोहोर्टच्या डिटेल्ससाठी तुम्ही एक फॉर्म फिल करा, ज्याची लिंक कमेंटमध्ये दिलेली आहे. फॉर्म फिल केल्यानंतर तुम्हाला सेशनची लिंक मिळेल, जिथे तुम्हाला या कोहोर्टबद्दल डिटेलमध्ये समजून घ्यायला मिळेल. चला आता व्हिडिओकडे वळूया. की मागच्या 5 वर्षांमध्ये वेदांता लिमिटेडचा जो प्रॉफिट आहे म्हणजे निव्वळ नफा तो आहे 80,000 कोटींचा आणि कंपनीने जो डिव्हिडंड वाटला तो आहे 1,10,000 कोटींचा. हा मेन आरोप जो लावलेला आहे त्यांच्यावर, हा म्हणजे एक पब्लिक डोमेनमध्येच हा डेटा आहे आणि हा आरोप जो लावलेला आहे तो व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चने त्यांच्यावर लावलेला आहे की जे वरचे 30,000 कोटी कुठून आले. जेवढा प्रॉफिट आहे त्यापेक्षा जास्त तुम्ही पैसा जर डिव्हिडंड देत आहे तर वरचे 30,000 कोटी कुठून आले, तर ते कर्जातून आले. यांनी काय केलं, मोठमोठे कर्ज घेतले. जवळपास आजपासून 4 वर्षांआधी यांचं जे कर्ज होतं ते 57,000 कोटींचं होतं, 57,000 करोड रुपीज. आता ते 70-80% वाढून 91,000 कोटींवर गेलेलं आहे. आता एवढं मोठं कर्ज म्हटल्यावर मग इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेन्सेस पण वाढतील. आता इंटरेस्ट पण यांचा वाढत गेला आणि जवळपास 10,000 कोटींचा वर्षाचा फक्त इंटरेस्ट या कंपनीला आज पे करावा लागतो. आता याच्या मागे 2 गोष्टी आहेत. एक तर सगळा प्रॉफिट पॅरेंट कंपनीला दिल्यामुळे वेदांता लिमिटेडकडे स्वतःच्या बिझनेसमध्ये इन्व्हेस्ट करण्यासाठी काही नाही आहे. त्यामुळे फ्युचरमध्ये त्यांची जी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी आहे, त्यांची जी रेव्हेन्यू ग्रोथ आहे त्याला नक्कीच प्रॉब्लेम येणार. आणि हाच मेन मुद्दा व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चने पकडला की जर तुमच्याकडे काय आहे की पब्लिक शेअर होल्डिंग्स म्हणजे काय की रिटेल इन्व्हेस्टर्स भरपूर आहेत आणि त्यांची खूप फसवणूक करताय असं व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चचं म्हणणं होतं की सगळा पैसा तुम्ही वर पाठवताय तर बिझनेसमध्ये काय इन्व्हेस्ट कराल, ग्रोथ कुठून येईल आणि शेअरहोल्डर्सला त्यातून फायदा काय मिळेल. सोबतच त्यांनी हे पण सांगितलं की हे जर असं सुरू राहिलं तर काही दिवसांनी वेदांताही बँकरप्ट होऊ शकते आणि त्यामुळे जर नुकसान कोणाला होईल तर ते रिटेल शेअरहोल्डर्सला होईल. आता हा झाला पहिला मेन आरोप. दुसरा जो मुख्य आरोप आहे तो हा आहे की ही जी वेदांता रिसोर्सेस आहे UK यांच्याकडे 56% शेअर्स आहेत वेदांता लिमिटेडचे, जसं मी आधी सांगितलं. या 56%पैकी यांनी भरपूर शेअर्स बँकांकडे ठेवले ॲज अ कोलॅटरल आणि त्याच्या अगेन्स्टमध्ये त्यांनी लोन घेतलं, मोठे मोठे लोन्स घेतले. आता जर वेदांता लिमिटेडची शेअर प्राईस खाली पडली तर वेदांता रिसोर्सेसला प्रॉब्लेम येईल. त्यांना अजून जास्त काहीतरी कोलॅटरल ठेवावं लागेल. ठीक आहे, कारण बँकांचं तसं असतं की तुम्ही जर एखाद्या कंपनीचे शेअर्स कोलॅटरल ठेवले, गहाण ठेवले तिथे, तर त्या शेअर्सची जर व्हॅल्यू कमी झाली तर तुम्हाला मग आणखी शेअर्स गहाण ठेवावे लागतील. आता ही पण गोष्ट वेदांताला माहिती होती चांगली. तर व्हॉइसरॉयचं हे म्हणणं आहे की वेदांताने मग काय केलं, एक नवीन त्यांनी टेक्निकचं नाव घेतलं. या टेक्निकचं नाव आहे बेट अँड स्विच फंड रेझिंग. बेट अँड स्विचमध्ये काय आहे की ह्या कंपनीने म्हणजे त्या रिपोर्टमध्ये असं लिहिलं आहे की वेदांताने काय केलं की मोठमोठ्या अनाउन्समेंट केल्या की आम्ही सेमी कंडक्टर, ग्लास मॅन्युफॅक्चरिंग, इवन न्यूक्लिअर पॉवरमध्ये $1 मिलियन इन्व्हेस्टमेंट करतोय. जशा न्यूज यायच्या कंपनीची शेअर प्राईस वाढायची आणि त्यातून मग एक स्टेबल शेअर प्राईस मिळायची. कारण अगेन वेदांता रिसोर्सेससाठी जर शेअर प्राईस पडली वेदांताची तर प्रॉब्लेम आहे. तर ते त्यांनी मेक शुअर केलं आणि अशा प्रकारे लोकांचा इंटरेस्ट कंपनीमध्ये त्यांनी मेंटेन केला. आता इथे जो त्यांनी आरोप केलेला आहे तो काही प्रमाणात आपण म्हणू शकतो सत्य पण आहे. कारण मागे सेबीने वेदांता ग्रुप आहे त्यांच्यावर ॲक्शन घेतली होती. कारण झालं काय की वेदांताचं तुम्ही ऐकलं असेल की वेदांता आणि फॉक्सकॉन ग्रुप यांचं एक जॉईंट कोलॅबरेशन होणार होतं, जॉईंट व्हेंचर, आणि ते सेमी कंडक्टर मॅन्युफॅक्चरिंग करणार होते. आता यामध्ये जे वेदांता लिमिटेडचा काही सहभाग नव्हता, यामध्ये वेदांता ग्रुपची दुसरी एक कंपनी होती तिचा सहभाग होता. पण यांनी काय केलं की ही जी कोलॅबरेशन आहे यांचं जॉईंट व्हेंचर आहे याची न्यूज जे लेटर पॅडवर यूज केली त्यावर वेदांता लिमिटेडचं नाव होतं. त्यामुळे शेअर होल्डर्सला काय वाटलं डील वेदांता लिमिटेडची आहे, त्यांनी पटापट अजून शेअर्स खरेदी केले. पण नंतर माहिती पडलं की ते वेदांता लिमिटेडचं नव्हतं, ती जी डील होती ते दुसऱ्या कंपनीची होती ग्रुपच्या. आणि त्यानंतर मग शेअर प्राईस परत पडली आणि सेबीला जेव्हा हे माहिती पडलं तेव्हा सेबीने काही 31 लाख रुपयांचा काही फाईन लावला होता वेदांता लिमिटेडवर त्यावेळेस. तर यातले काही ज्या गोष्टी आहेत त्या डेटा बॅक्ड आहेत. पण भरपूर यांनी असे आरोप लावलेले आहेत की इनफॅक्ट यांनी ऑडिटरवर आरोप लावलेले आहेत. तर आजकाल ऑडिटरमध्ये क्लीनवालं रेअरली कोणी मिळतो. त्यानंतर काही सबसिडरीजवर यांनी आरोप लावले की यांची एक सबसिडरी स्मगलिंग करतं गोल्ड भारतातून दुबईला, त्याचाही काही डेटा यांच्याकडे नव्हता. आणि असे जवळपास 8-10 डिफरंट आरोप यांनी लावले. काही यांचं म्हणणं आहे की यांच्या काही सबसिडरी कंपनीज आहेत, छोटे छोटे सबसिडरीज, ज्यांच्यातून काहीच बिझनेस येत नाही आहे, काही 6 महिन्यांपासून बंद पडलेले आहेत. पण त्याचा एक प्रॉपर डेटा नाही आहे. पण जो डेटा आहे त्याच्यातून जर सांगायचं झालं तर सध्या कंपनी पूर्णचा पूर्ण पैसा पॅरेंट कंपनीला पाठवते. यामुळे फ्युचरमध्ये शेअर होल्डर्सला प्रॉब्लेम होऊ शकतात. सध्या तरी चांगलं शेअर होल्डर्ससाठी, कारण त्यांना 10% डिव्हिडंड यील्ड मिळतो आहे. म्हणजे जर तुम्ही ₹100 कंपनीमध्ये इन्व्हेस्ट केले असतील तर 100वर ₹10 तुम्हाला सध्या डिव्हिडंड मिळतो आहे वेदांताकडून, तो सध्या मिळतो आहे. पण यांचं म्हणणं आहे की व्हाईसरॉयचं म्हणणं आहे की असंच राहिलं कंटिन्यू तर कंपनी एवढा प्रॉफिटच कमवणार नाही. त्यामुळे प्रॉफिटच कमवणार नाही तर जास्त डिव्हिडंडही देऊ शकणार नाही. आणि जे कर्ज त्या बदल्यात त्यांनी आता घेतलेलं आहे खूप मोठं 91,000 कोटींचं, तिकडचं 86,000 कमी करण्यासाठी यांनी 91,000चं कर्ज घेतलं आहे, अशी एक कहाणी आहे ही वेदांताची, जी व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चने त्यांच्या रिपोर्टमध्ये सांगितली आहे. जर डिटेलमध्ये तुम्हाला व्हिडिओ बघायचा आहे तर तुम्ही खाली एक डिस्क्रिप्शनमध्ये आमचा हिंदी व्हिडिओ आहे, त्याच्या एंडला मी डिस्कशन पण टाकलेलं आहे माझं आणि व्हॉइसरॉय रिसर्चचे जे फाउंडर आहेत फ्रेझर आणि गॅब्रियल यांच्यामधलं. तर तिथे तुम्ही डिटेलमध्ये बघू शकता. मी त्यांना थोडे तिखट प्रश्न पण विचारलेले आहेत की तुम्ही इथे शॉर्ट सेलिंग केलेली आहे का. तर सुरुवातीला त्यांनी त्यांनी हे सांगितलं की इक्विटीमध्ये म्हणजे स्टॉक्समध्ये शॉर्ट पोझिशन आम्ही नाही घेतली आहे, डेटमध्ये म्हणजे बॉन्ड्समध्ये त्यामध्ये आम्ही शॉर्ट पोझिशन घेतलेली आहे. तर अशा प्रकारची ही केस स्टडी आहे, थोडी युनिक आहे. कशी वाटली तुम्हाला खाली कमेंट करून नक्की सांगा. काय तुमचे प्रश्न असतील ते सुद्धा विचारा, मी आन्सर करण्याचा प्रयत्न करेल. आणि हां, सध्या आम्ही अँकर हायर करत आहोत. जर तुमच्या कॉन्टॅक्टमध्ये कोणी अँकर असतील जे एक्सपिरियन्स असेल ज्यांना 1 वर्ष 2 वर्ष फ्रीलान्सिंग असेल किंवा फुल टाईम असेल वॉटेवर, तर ह्या दिलेल्या नंबरवर जर नक्कीच व्हॉट्सअप करायला सांगा. आणि सध्या इथेच थांबूया, भेटूया पुढच्या व्हिडिओमध्ये. चला, thank you so much for coming here, Gabriel and Fraser.
Sure.
And the first question that I would like to ask is like, why did you pick Vedanta?
Sure. Well, I think Vedanta has already, I mean, the Vedanta has apparently already been the talk of the town in India for some time. Um, we saw Vedanta's debt instruments in the UK as being a potentially viable short. They were quite liquid, and they're US denominated. And generally speaking, when we're looking at shorting debt, we look at two things. We look at the ability of the company to be able to cover the interest payment, so debt coverage. And we look at the collateral of the debt and whether or not that's impaired, which would be the collectability of the principal. In this case, objectively, Vedanta Group does not make enough money to cover the interest service charges. And this is observable, Vedanta Resources as a consolidated group, so from top to bottom, including Vedanta Limited, does not generate enough cash to pay dividends up the chain that are very expensive because of the structure with non-controlling interests from Hindustan Zinc and from Vedanta Limited,
Yeah.
to then be able to cover the interest payments at Vedanta Resources. Now, it is the way that there is some sort of misconception in the market that Vedanta is going through a brilliant sort of debt trimming strategy, which is completely false. The net debt in the Vedanta consolidated group has decreased somewhat, but That is at a gross level. At a net level, if we take into account the amount of assets that Vedanta has liquidated, the amount of liquid assets that it has drained from its reserves, the amount of working capital management it has taken to sort of to create some sort of liquidity in its current assets, we actually see that this debt has increased, pretty substantially, maybe tapered off a bit with some dilutive capital raises at the equity level. And the cost of debt has increased, almost twofold. So from a viewpoint of why we selected Vedanta, firstly, it looked like people already understood that this was a struggling entity. Fair enough, it's junk rated debt. But there seemed to be, when we started picking beneath the surface of this preconception that this business was struggling, we found this sort of very loose belief that, okay, these guys seem to be engaging in a pretty, inspiring turnaround. And just scraping through that surface, we found that that was very not true.
Okay. So one thing, that is interesting, quite interesting about this report is the timing. Vedanta is
Yep.
planning for the demerger, and September month, timeline has been given to them. So
Yeah.
that is one thing, and another thing is that the date restructuring that you are talking about. I mean, it has been happening since quite a long time. I mean, if you look
Sure.
at last 5 years financial reports, you will see the similar pattern. So why this report now? I mean, even though I think many people also do know that this has been happening in the company. So what's special about the current timing?
There's nothing special about the current timing. I think every time we put a report out, someone asks us, why did you do it now? Literally, we tried to get this out as quickly as we could
Okay.
after we got the 2025 financial report. This thing we have been working on for months. If we could have gotten it out before the FY 2025 results, we decided to wait because we wanted to see, a lot of the research we're conducting depends on, I guess, the quick availability of this news. If we're writing this report and we put it out a month ago and it didn't have FY 25 results, it would probably be redundant, or we would have to repeat the entire exercise to show that actually it's still valid after 25.
But
Um,
also in line with that, the full year 2025 came in and confirmed our thesis. Yeah, you can't just write something up and not
yeah,
test yourself. People seem to think that it's a propaganda as we're using propaganda techniques or whatever it is and malice. We're just using company data.
yeah,
And the difference between us and them is we spend months trawling over data, testing ourselves, and importantly, assuming we're wrong. And it's only when we get to a stage where it's starting to stack up do we start to believe ourselves.
yeah.
And
And
go on, Gabe.
oh no, so I was just going to address, as far as the question that relates to, uh, I believe the question is intended to mean why did we do it essentially not 2 years ago? Because you have
Yeah.
seen some sort of superficial improvement of the results. That's not our belief at all. We believe that the Vedanta group is significantly worse off now than it was 3 years ago. And I'll run you through some stats, and I can send these through to you later. Maybe you can put them or overlay on the video if you'd
Yeah,
like.
yeah, sure.
We looked at Vedanta's financials in three different ways. We looked at it as a consolidated group, we looked at it as a propco, and we looked at it as Vedanta Limited, the operating entities, right? The Vedanta Limited consolidated group, the net debt has increased over the last 5 years,
Yeah.
and it sits at the same rate now, say $13 billion dollars as it did last year, if you exclude the $1 billion dollars raised by management, which was dilutive equity raise.
Yeah.
At the same time, the gross cash has been severely depleted. Your working capital has been, managed to essentially liquidate those short-term assets. And the effective interest cost on your gross interest-bearing liabilities has increased from 7.6% in 2021 to 14% in 2025. Okay, so that's almost double.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. It's not fair to say, okay, well, this company's managing its debt because it's these debts somehow reducing because we're selling stakes in our business and we're liquidating assets to pay down minutia of debt, of gross debt. It's not fair to say that while your interest costs double. So yes, you can replace your debt with a slightly, and I'll say slightly less amount of debt. On a net basis, against your cash, you have a greater net debt position, and the effective interest cost has increased by 2x. So I'm not sure, again, this is the question we've asked. This The real propaganda in our eyes is that Vedanta is engaging in a rehabilitation strategy to refi this debt in a manner that's more sustainable. And every sense of the way that we look at it, that's not the case. So if we move on to the Vedanta Limited, which is the principal collateral for this debt, Vedanta Limited's net debt has increased from, this is after working capital adjustments, has increased in our book from 3.7 billion in 2021 to 9.9 billion in 25,
Yeah.
right? The gross debt has increased by only $1 billion. The net debt has increased by 3x, by $6 billion.
Right.
Again, the interest expenses have gone from, roughly 7% to 13%.
Yeah.
And you have more than doubled your interest costs, and all of the cash that's being raised, your free cash flow margins are slimmer. All the cash that's being raised is used to pay dividends, but the dividends exceed the value of the free cash flow by an enormous amount.
Yeah.
Vedanta Limited has paid about $8 billion of dividends in the last 3 years. They've incurred a $5.6 billion shortfall over $8 billion of dividends paid, which has been made up with debt. And the unusual consequence of paying such a high dividend at Vedanta Limited, right? And make no there's absolutely no question that the reason that these dividends are paid and that the quantum of dividend paid exceeds the affordability of the dividend because Vedanta Resources has debt that it can't afford. The only cash generating asset Vedanta Resources has to pay to, or to service that debt is its stake in Vedanta Limited. The unusual consequence of that dividend being so high is that it has floated the stock price of Vedanta Limited
Yeah.
quite significantly. And the benefit of that to Vedanta Resources is that the collateral the collateral for the debt that they hold is the stock.
Yeah.
So not only will them being able to not afford to pay the interest and not afford to pay these dividends continuously impact the debt coverage, suddenly if you've cut the dividend of the stock price tumbles as well, and that's also the collateral.
It's a
So
complete circle, but on
and
the
and
on the
that's
flip side,
that's where we believe this is Ponzi-esque in nature. You're borrowing money, which is basically a subordinated loan at this point. You're borrowing money at your subsidiary, right? And you send that money upwards to pay your old investors at the owner, and the owner's principal secured against the equity of the subsidiary, which is being highly indebted and now cannot afford really to take on more debt.
Interesting. So if I could summarize what you explained is like the first thing is like the dividends that are being paid out. So they are greater than the cash generated from operating activities. And that is why
Correct.
you are saying that they are being paid from the date that company is
Correct.
acquiring. And at the same time, the date cost is doubling. In the last 5 years, it has
Yes.
doubled. And second thing that is quite interesting that you said is like, Vedanta Resources has the collateral they have also raised the capital from the banks
Yeah.
in the form of debt, and the collateral for that loan is Vedanta Limited stocks. So that is why
Yeah.
company can't afford to
Correct.
loosen up the
Well,
share price. Yeah.
and I think that's also another big misconception about what we're trying to do here is we are not against the we are actually very against the pillaging of Vedanta Limited. We think that Vedanta Limited is being run by a kleptocratic management that is systematically looting the assets of Vedanta Limited for their only benefit exclusively. It is not in the interest of the shareholders of Vedanta Limited that they continue to do this. And it's not in the interest of the creditors of Vedanta Resources, whose collateral is, the Vedanta Limited stock, to allow them to keep stealing from this business. And I think that's straightforward. We're not, the best outcome for them is to get management out at this point.
So one very important question that India's retail investors are asking. I mean, yesterday we asked some of our subscribers, do you have anything to ask? So the most
Yep.
liked question was Has Viceroy taken any short position in Vedanta?
In Vedanta
Not yet.
Limited, no. Our fight is to preserve the value of Vedanta Limited.
Okay.
That is, I mean, fundamentally what we have written is that the best outcome for Vedanta Limited and for Vedanta Resources shareholders is to preserve Vedanta Limited. And the only way to do that at the moment is to stop the rampant looting of Vedanta Limited for the exclusive benefit of its majority shareholder. We are not short Vedanta Limited.
So this is leading me to the another question. Like
Mhm.
you have come up with the research. You did like scuttlebutt approach as well. Visiting their subsidiaries, understanding the on-ground position, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. Need lots of money. So my question is, what is your monetary benefit from this particular report, and generally, how do you make money overall from research point of view?
Sure. We're short the debt of Vedanta Resources. We're
Acha.
short the owners of well, the owners of Vedanta, essentially.
Okay, okay,
Um, and by the way, this what we are short a company that's taking money away from India, and that's the Indian taxpayer, that is the Indian shareholders to the UK.
okay.
So this is a very we are. I'm not going to pretend to be a some sort of stock evangelist, but we want to preserve the value of Vedanta in India.
Okay, okay, okay. So you have taken some sort of short position.
Yeah.
Yes, but in the shareholding company, we're taking a short position of Vedanta Resources being the parent company of Vedanta Limited.
Okay, okay. In Vedanta Resources, not in Vedanta Limited.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Understood. So, I mean, this is again leading me to ask you another question. Like Vedanta Limited is listed, Vedanta Resources isn't. So, like, how
Yes.
do you short in that?
Because
In that
their
case?
debt, their
Yeah.
debt's tradable
Okay,
in
Correct.
US denominated,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
a
got
bond short, not a stock short.
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. Perfect. So now I have this question from the Indian retail investors. So like few months back, almost a year back, Hindenburg happened. So they put some allegations on the Adani group. Then SEBI report, SEBI started the investigation, and the report came out like SEBI didn't find anything very serious there. So that is why people have started the activist research companies like Hindenburg, like yours. So, what one thing that you would like to, tell the shareholders of Vedanta and retail investors of India?
I would say to not base. I mean, this is not an isolated incident with Sevi and Hindenburg. After we published Wirecard or Fraser published Wirecard, the immediate reaction of the German regulator was to persecute us.
Ah,
Um, I would, and everyone knows how that turned out. Uh, I would say that, we don't rely on other analysts to conduct our research. We don't rely on credit agencies to conduct our research, and we don't rely on the regulators to accurately conduct their research. And an insult. We know that, especially more so now that these regulators have a hard job, that they're unfortunately underfunded. And we do the best we can to kind of lay out what we think on a silver platter, and we engage with them and we give them the information that we have, and we're always happy to help.
all right.
We've also got within our submissions that we're doing to SEBI, there's an opportunity here for the regulators and the government to actually improve the confidence in the market by taking the appropriate action. It's quite clear that things don't stack up how management have said.
One of the
They've kind
largest investors in Vedanta Limited's biggest assets is the Indian government. We have quite concisely detailed how they're being looted, like they're being robbed.
How?
Um, Well, I mean, Hindustan Zinc and Balco are both, quite heavily owned by the Indian government.
Okay.
If you start looting those businesses and paying brand fees out of those businesses that are just disproportionate, have no, commercial reasoning behind them, and then laden those businesses up with debt and try to move that debt in as dividends upwards as one-time sort of grifts. Uh, it's not really in the interest of the other shareholders to do that. Your strategies are misaligned. The strategy for the shareholder is to reinvest some of the free cash flow into those expansion projects that have been
Yeah.
announced years ago that have been constantly delayed, right? That's the future of the dividend. Now is taking on more debt to pay a bigger dividend now is short-termism that doesn't last. Uh,
So
you
do
also
you?
have instances where, obviously those events happened. You also have instances where Vedanta straight up tried to defraud the Indian government by selling Hindustan Zinc and Balco crap businesses. You have ESL Steel, which this is what we've discussed earlier. Is they Vedanta tried to sell ESL Steel to I think HZL at one point for a 3x valuation, and the government had to intervene as a minority shareholder to stop that transaction.
Okay.
Obviously, that transaction it's ridiculous. It's a total fraud.
But
Um,
if you think about it from another perspective, so believe your own eyes, not your ears, is a really good phrase. Yeah. Go away and have a look at how many liability related announcements Vedanta has announced over the past 3 years. It's 107. Yeah, versus its peers that's 15, things like that. And the way their disregard for compliance of regulation is insane. It's insulting to their own investors.
these guys have by far the most active disputes with the Indian tax authorities than we have seen any company have with any tax authorities anywhere. It's over $2 billion of Hindustan Zinc statutory dues are in dispute um, since the early 2000s.
And it's 3.5 billion
Yeah,
from memory in total liabilities that seem to be put down. We're fighting it, so we don't have to make a provision for it.
yeah.
And the reality is they're just extending and pretending, and it's all coming to a head.
And in the
You
back
can't.
end, and in the back end of this as well, like the government knows that this, well, I mean, we presume the government knows that this is not, this Hindustan Zinc is also overvalued, given that they're trying to actively exit the stock.
So I was listening to what Vedanta management had to say on the matter. They said that we were not involved by the Viceroy research, while the investigation, and they said all the things that have been said in the report are untrue. What do you say on this?
Yes. Well, if they're all untrue, they should be pretty easy to disprove. Um, we haven't heard anything from them, and we haven't seen them even attempt to disprove any of our reports. We don't engage with management before the reports because all this information should be public. We shouldn't depend on fireside chats like every other analyst that is probably speaking to management. Um, because we had no burning questions. I think everything we found was pretty straightforward. Um, we don't see the reason of
Prasad,
engaging with management beforehand.
Okay.
you've got this issue where within their statement, if you just look at their statement, right, the first is that they try and dismiss it with, and this is common, it's all in the public domain. So is that an admission that we're right? But amazingly, if it's all in the public domain, it's taken us months of delving into all the subsidiaries, right? So it's all in the public domain, which means we aren't using inside information. That's a plus. At least you know that we're complying with the law. But on the second part, as I said earlier, this is a propaganda. People using and flinging around this propaganda and malice, all the statements or the figures are their own. And it's illogical to think that management can dismiss in a childish manner a very detailed report where people have come back to us and said, we never knew this. A complete contradiction to what management is saying.
We do tend to thoroughly reference every single one of our findings as well.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. And what would be your message to the management of Vedanta?
well, we've asked
Resign.
that we've actually just published a list of questions today. I can send you
Uh-huh.
the link to it if you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
That's our comments. If they've asked for us to engage with them, there you go. There's our questions.
Okay, okay. And you,
Take a basic accounting course. I don't know.
Maybe we can sell management a course in financial, prudence, how to manage your debt.
yeah, yeah, that would be
Stop
interesting.
with the gun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
available for a CFO role.
if gi if given opportunity to have one-on-one discussion with the Vedanta management, will you be open for that opportunity?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Interesting, interesting. So we'll
We could
see.
do
I
it right
mean,
here in London, where they all
Where all
live,
the
right?
cash goes.
Yeah, exactly.
I will for sure because we are into particularly long
Yeah.
term thing. I mean, yeah, and for long term thing, the India the main problem, not just in India but worldwide that is happening is like accounting, engineering.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
number of
Yeah.
cases have increased multifold in the last few years, and it is very very important for a newbie investor to understand the financial uh,
I
details
agree.
and analytical stuff so that they could start the next research from just like Viceroy.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about this, Prasad, the financial engineering is the biggest risk to investors, whether in India
Right.
or not. And even just having a basic understanding of free cash flow versus the dividends that are paid will make you realize the reason it's high is generally it's not because it's a good company. You're subscribing a significant risk without realizing in collecting that dividend. Sometimes lower dividends are better for a business. It's more sustainable and it helps it grow. That is the contrary to where Vedanta is today.
Got it. I mean, interesting. Nice to know. So thank you so much for your time, Fraser and Gabby.
Yeah.
It
All
was
right.
nice catching you up and looking forward to
Likewise.
many more conversations future like this.